Welcome to another hook and lift map. This time we are doing Disconnected by James Hype. Just going to set the right output here on Ableton. And let's get started. So hook and lift map. So we are going to map out the hooks of the track. We're interested in how the hooks develop over time. Because, really a success of a track is defined by that, how the hooks are developed. Because you can imagine two tracks using the exact same hook. It happens all the time. But some are more successful than others. Could be a groove sound that makes one track stand out over another, for sure. But another big part of it is how that hook develops over time. Are you keeping that listener interested over time on the way you develop that hook? So that's what we're going to be looking at, hook and lift map. And then with the lifts, we're also looking at how the producer is lifting the energy or settling the energy over time. So if they bring in a ride in, I'm going to map that out because that's lifting the energy. It's another way to, quote unquote, manipulate the listener, bring up the excitement level, and just keep them interested and engaged from start to finish. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to map out the hooks of the track. We're going to map out the lifts of the track. Again, the sounds that lift the energy. And let's see. So first thing I'm going to do is just create a beat thing because I'm not interested in breaking down the groove or the beat. I'm definitely interested in when the bass comes in and stuff, but I'm just going to treat like the drums as one thing because again, I'm just interested in the arrangement, really, how the arrangement unfolds. And the most important things for the arrangement unfolding are going to be how the hook develops, hooks within plural develop, and the lifts, how they manipulate the energy. So let's get started. Here we go. So right away, we got a high pass groove. So we have the drums that are high pass, and we also need to create a bass. And let's go ahead and draw this in like this. And okay, and this is also high passed. And then you can hear a Vox rep. So let's put Vox, and this is going to be, let's do intro rep. Now, one of the things I'm going to do is like every time there's a vocal that's used in a slightly different way, that has a different function or is like a different category of hook, I'm going to create its own track. Okay, so for example, if we had a verse, that would have a new track because a verse is different than a repetition. They are different techniques. And so what's cool about that is at the end, we can see how the producer takes like one vocal, let's say, and sees, and we can see how many techniques are used or how many different ways the producer uses that vocal to create interesting hooks throughout the track. And so this first one here is that he is using just a rep, just a repetition. And it sounds like it's just going on and on, right? And this is just slightly gaining up, so I want to make note of that because this is going to be a trans element, a transition element. Repetitions like this one are just classic ways to transition into a new section or build tension for the next section. Anytime you have like a repetition, it naturally builds energy, but as it gains up in volume, for example, or another way is that you could have a low pass filter open up. As that happens over time, is building tension, and that tension is saying we are going to a new section. So you can see right here, the next part is going to be some kind of new section. So that's what this is. Straight out of the gate, we're getting what's it called? Just a trans element. All right, and I was going to see if there was like an outro section that didn't have the vocal in it, because then I was just going to drop another 8 bars before this where it's just dry, because that's something that you could do. You could have had 8 bars where it's just dry beats, high pass beats. Then for the next 8 bars, that's where you introduce the trans element, and that takes you into the next section. So I'm just giving you a way where you could have extended this intro if you wanted to. 8 bars is a little bit short, 16 is kind of typical. But if you were going to make it 16, what would you do? Well, you have the first 8 bars dry, you have the second 8 bars with that vocal trans element, okay? And so anyway, let's keep going. Okay, so now we have I'm going to do an intro tease. I think he says, or she says, or whoever is, keep on and on. Is that what they say? Let's see. Keep on and on. Yeah, keep on and on. All right, cool. So that is a different vocal technique there. So I'm going to give it a different track. And we're going to also just create our edit map right away. An edit map is just like when little things happen. I don't want to go crazy into the detail of what goes on, but I just want to mark when there's like interesting little things happen. Let me see what happens here. Keep on and on. Okay, so nothing happened actually. Keep on and on. So if the drums cut, for example, then that would be like an example of a tiny little edit. Okay, so let's keep going here. Keep on and on. Okay, cool. So we have a 16th note shaker, as you could hear, and that is an example of a lift. Even though we're coming out of the intro, I still want to make note of that because no doubt it is a lift. And I'm just going to copy pretty much the drums and the bass over. I'm going to put the bass under the beat here. And so I'm taking off the high pass now because these are just full. So maybe I'll just write full. Unnecessary, but I'll just do it anyway. Okay, so we have the 16th note shaker there. That is a lift. Might as well write lift here, right? All right, and now we are going to have punks. Let's see. Let's do a bass drop punks, okay? So, punks are punctuation points. So if you think about like an English sentence, you have like maybe a comma in the middle, and then at the end of the sentence you have a period. And so a comma is less dramatic than a period, or a period is more dramatic than a comma. And then if we imagine maybe like a second sentence, at the end of that second sentence we have an exclamation mark, right? So an exclamation mark is more dramatic than a period. And so we have this kind of like hierarchy of drama with punctuation in like the English language and in other languages too. But here in like tracks, or in an 8-bar section or 16-bar section or 32-bar section, we kind of have a grammar, a very similar kind of grammar to them, where we have these dramatic, this like hierarchy of dramatic punctuation marks. And so the way that it works out is typically we'll have something happen at the 4-bar mark. So I call that a P4, or punctuation at the 4-bar mark, or for short, a punk at the 4. Oh my gosh. Okay. So it's called a punk, right? So a punk would happen at the 4, and then, but I typically call that a P4. Okay, geez. And then here we have a P8. Okay, so this is at the end of the 8-bar section. We would have a P16 typically, right? Because the P16 is going to probably be more dramatic than what happens at the 8. And here, okay, so over 16 bars, I wouldn't call this like a P12. That's awkward to me. This would just be another P4, okay? Because we're really thinking in 8-bar segments and then 16-bar segments. And so this would just be a second 8-bar segment, obviously, right? So here's the first 8-bar, here's the second 8-bar. And then here, this is just the P4 of this 8-bar segment. But this right here is obviously the P8 of this 8-bar segment, but it's also the P16 of this entire segment. All right, so I hope you can see why I don't really call this a P12. That's just weird. A P12 isn't any more dramatic than this, than a P4. It's the exact same thing, okay? So the 4 bars really live in, the 4-bar marks live inside their 8-bar sections, okay? So this is a P4, this is a P4, this is a P8, this is a P16, okay? Just think about the grammar of it, okay? And so what we have now are vocal punks. And so here, and then here, and let's just keep listening. One quick thing is, you might be wondering why this is so important. It's important because so much of a track is structural. Like where you put things is structural. It's just throwing a hook in to highlight a structural part of the track, like an important structural moment of the track. And that's something that most producers miss, like the importance of that. And it's everywhere. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. But let's see what's going on here. All right, so this one is real short and it just says keep, okay? And that little keep is a P4. It's just right around the 4-bar mark. And there we go. See, it's structural, right? Okay, so here we have a little bit of an edit, so I'll just mark that, as you can see. And then we have a nice little clap fill, okay? And so I'm just gonna put that there, and so this one is keep on and on. Now this is so cool. Let me keep going with this next 8-bar section. Actually, no, I'm going to say it now because I don't want to forget, because something else cool might pop up. So I'll say it now. This is such a good example of so many things where the bass drop, we're coming into the bass drop. So here's the intro, then here's the bass drop. And so I should probably start like coloring these things. And so this is going to be the bass drop, okay? And I can even just go like this, and we can rename it bass drop. And then in the beginning, obviously that's the intro. I guess I could put a marker there or whatever. And this is intro. Okay, so with the bass drop though, the bass drop is you really just want to introduce the bass line. Okay, the bass line, and you don't want to have a bunch of hooks over it. That's for later on. You just want to teach people the bass line, teach people how to move to the track, and yeah, you don't want to have throw a lot of hooks on top. But at the same time, of course, you need to have these little spikes of energy to keep things interesting. And that's what one of the things that punks do, is they allow you to give these little spikes of energy to kind of break up the monotony. Obviously, because dance tracks, the nature of them is that they're repetitive. So giving little spikes of energy like this with punks, in this case we're using vocal punks, but you could use like drums, you can use sound design kind of stuff, but it just adds little bursts of energy, little spikes of energy. But what I want to say is that this is so classic what's going on here. We have just a proper, I call it a proper bass drop, because all we're doing here is introducing the bass line. That's a proper bass drop. Nothing else is really going on. Okay, and then another classic thing that happens is we have vocal punks. Okay, here at the P4 and the P8. Another classic thing here is that these vocal punks are in a call response fashion. Okay, these three things are so classic, okay, that like you can never ever go wrong doing this. So let me show you what the CR is. Okay, so CR is just call response. So so here this guy says keep, then this one simply says keep on and on. Okay, check it out. Keep on and on. So this starts the phrase, and then this finishes the phrase. They call response in such a simple way like that, okay? And so, yeah. And then another classic thing here is the P8 is just more dramatic in more than one way. So one way that the P8 here is more dramatic is that this vocal phrase finishes the phrase. Here it cuts it short, here it finishes the phrase. So that's one way that this punk right here is more dramatic than the PR, for example, okay? Another way that this is more dramatic is that we have a clap fill, okay? So there's two things now that differentiate this punk from the middle one, okay? And then another thing is I believe they do a little bit of a kick cut. Let's check it out. Yeah, so they take out the kick and the bass right there, okay? And there you go. So those are just three classic things, I think maybe four actually. We have a proper bass drop, so we're just dropping the bass. Two, we have vocal punks. So I wouldn't really consider these as like a hook. It's not like a star of the show. The star of the show is the bass. That's what I mean by proper bass drop. There's no other star of the show other than the bass right now. And then, okay, so proper bass drop. Two, we have the vocal punks. Three, the vocal punks are CRing, so they're call response. And then the fourth thing, so there are four things, is that we have a much more obvious dramatic P8 than we do at the P4. Okay, it's several levels more dramatic than the P4. Okay, I'm not going to cover them again because I just want to make that higher level point. But man, I am really glad I stopped and went through that because yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. Absolutely cannot go wrong doing what's going on here. Okay, so let's just move everything over and let's listen to what's going on now. Okay, and another classic thing that pops up here is we have what's called the B lift. Okay, B, the letter B, and then lifting. Okay, so, and Okay, I'm just going to get rid of these words just because it doesn't look clean later on. Just all these words all over the place. Okay, so I guess I can move this over just because it's a lift. So now we have a B lift, and the B lift is very simple. It's just a ride, and that's so classic too, okay? There's so many good things in this track. There's some other things I'm going to point out that are very different and unique, but at the same time, there's so many classic things going on in this track that, like, yeah, you can't go wrong modeling a lot of this stuff. Okay, so we got, so what is a B lift? Okay, so this is an A section. This is a B section, okay? And so in the B section, what is happening? We are lifting the energy with a ride cymbal. It's really that simple. And that's classic. It's like, what is the B lift of your bass drop? Okay, that's a question that you should ask yourself. And there should be one there. Okay, here we go. All right, we have the keep. All right, so right here we have effects up, okay? And so I'm not going to go crazy into what effects are there or what is not there, like what effects are there. It's just this is an up effect as opposed to like a down effect. An up effect is supposed to build tension. It's saying we are going to go somewhere new, and that's exactly what's going to happen. But let's listen from here. Okay, so we don't have, we don't finish the call response here. And that's cool, okay, because for two reasons. Let me first actually write this down so we have the dial tone, I think is what I'll call it. And we'll just get the right color there. Okay, cool. So two things. Number one, here the listener expects to have this keep resolved. Okay, because it was resolved over here. Here we just have a keep, then we have a keep on and on. We have a keep, the listener expects, just because we're, you know, pattern-seeking animals, that this is going to resolve here. It doesn't. So we have a really simple case of denying expectations. But something else comes in and takes its place, and it's the first time that we hear the dial tone. Now this track is called Disconnected, and so this dial tone here is a thematic element. It plays into the theme of the track. And so there's another of really cool instances of that idea in this track, and I'll point them out when it comes up. But the only thing I want to point out here, number one, is that we're denying the expectation, because here we're setting up a clear pattern. Okay, keep on, keep, and then we expect that to resolve. It doesn't. Instead, we get a new tone. We get a new sound to fill that space. Yeah. So, and one last thing is that here we're just have a very minor transition element, which is the white noise. Okay. So here we're just kind of chilling through the bass drop with our two vocal punks. And then here in the B section, we are lifting the energy with a ride, and we have a small little transition into the next section. And that's going to be break 1. So I'm going to label this break 1. Okay. And let's go ahead and just color this while we're here. And is there any edits? Let's see. Okay, cool. So let's keep going. Not a lot of edits there. This would be like the P16. The P16 just has this dial tone. So it's denying expectation and giving us that new sound, which is like, oh, what is that? Well, it has to do with the theme of the track. So now let's move over here. And I'm just going to put HP, because now we are defining the break, obviously, giving people a break by taking away the low end, by high passing the drums and the bass. Now, if we listen, this is kind of interesting. So if we listen to the intro, listen to the bass, okay? Now, it might be hard to hear because we have a wide vocal, but you can hear the bass. Just focus on the bass down the middle, okay? Okay, listen down the middle, focus on it down the middle. Now I'm going to play it right here, and notice where else you hear the bass. You can hear it wide, okay? Now, I don't know if I want to label this. So it sounds like the wide bass layer came in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do mix equals center, okay? I can't hear anything wide there, but I could, and it might be because that vocal's there, but over here, I definitely hear a distorted bass layer on the side, and that's probably just carrying over from here with a high pass. But what that shows you is that this bass is probably made up of different layers, and so experiment with that, okay? And experiment with using those different layers to manipulate the energy over time. Okay, so even here, you could get away with not having a wide bass layer because just the bass drop, you don't need the full presentation of your groove in the bass drop. You literally just need to teach people the bass line. And then here in hook drop 1, we'll get into this in a second, that's when you can introduce more drum lifts, like fill out the drum section, like a bigger open hat, for example, or you can also fill out the bass section by having a wider bass sound come in as well. And so that's just different things that you can do. And so that's just some, I guess, advice I wanted to throw your way because I heard now a wide bass sound. So let's listen to what's going on here.
I feel a little.
Okay, so this is super cool, okay? I really like this because, okay, so in a break section, in break 1, one of the classic techniques, again, that you can never go wrong doing is 3 things. Number 1 is defining the break, which is just putting a high pass on it, pretty much, you know, taking away the low end so people actually have a break from dancing. Number 2 is introducing something new. Okay, so like kind of the main hook. A third thing that you could do then is do like an Atmos, add like an Atmos that helps define and warm up the break. A nice thing about an Atmos sound, you know, like a string or like a little pad off in the distance, or even like a vocal repetition and a little bit of a reverb or something. The cool thing about that is that it pushes the break away from the mix by defining something off in the distance, like in the back of the mix. It makes the whole mix just feel like it has more depth and it gets pushed back from the front of the mix. And the reason why that's cool is because when you take it away, when you go into the drop, then all of a sudden the drop just feels boom, in your face, super aggressive, super powerful, super energetic. And so those are the 3 things that I like to do in the break, which is define the break by, obviously, with a high pass on the kick and the bass. 2, introduce something new. That's actually really important. And then number 3 is have some kind of atmosphere that defines the vibe of the break and moves the mix back from the front of the mix. And so what's going on here is he's not doing that at all. He's doing about as minimal of a thing that you could possibly do, which is just putting a high pass. There's no new hook. There's no hook through this thing, except for right there at the payoff section. And there's no Atmos. So it's really cool, and I think I'll tell you why I think that's cool in a second. But let's see. We have a white noise here, so that we get a little bit of a transition sound that helps take us into the next. It's the same one that's being used over here probably. And then here we also have what I like to call as a pattern interrupt and a payoff. So pattern interrupt, PI, payoff, PO. So PIPO. I call this whole section right here a PIPO. Pattern interrupt, payoff. Okay, so check it out. What's the pattern? Well, just the very simple groove that's just repeating, right? That's the pattern. Now, later on, when we get into a build section, there's going to be a pattern that's building tension. So you'll have snare rolls, you'll have risers, and that's the pattern. The pattern is a kind of accelerating tension. But here the pattern is just a simple groove. It gets cut or interrupted, so pattern interrupt. And then here we have the payoff, which is going to be a pickup melody into the vocal. Okay, and so that's very typical, having a PIPO, pattern interrupt payoff, at the end of a break, and especially at the end of the main break and build, which we'll get to. That's just another thing. Okay, so here, let's just summarize. We've just got about a minimal of a thing that you could possibly do, which is just high pass the groove. No new hooks, and we don't really have an Atmos. We don't have an Atmos. We have a very small transition sound that helps us build energy and lets us know that we're going into a new section. Then we have a pattern interrupt and a payoff. And the payoff right here is a pickup melody for the vocal that takes us into the next section. So let's check this out.
I feel a little.
Awesome. And so we are absolutely going to create a new track for this. And this is going to be I'm just going to call this the verse. You know, this is like the main line. It's not like this track has a verse and a chorus in it, but I'm just going to call this a verse. I could also call it the, I don't know. Let's just call it the main line. Okay, there we go. Let's just do that.
I feel a little.
Okay, so lots of cool things here.
Feel a little. I feel a little disconnected. Nothing better. Can't correct it. I take a little. So effective.
Okay, so let's see. Let's just move some things over before I start talking about what's going on here. So we got the beat, we got the bass. We do not have a 16th note shaker.
Disconnected.
We do not have a ride. The question is, do we have a different hat sound? I'm going to delete these words. These words are bothering me because they're unnecessary. There we go, clean. Okay, so do we have a bigger hat? Nope, same hat. Okay, let's keep listening.
Disconnected.
All right, we definitely have a new sound design sound. So I'm going to do SD, and let's just do D tuning perk synth thing, okay? So it sounds like. And so let's go like this. Obviously, the Vox and the sound design down here are CRing, you know, call response. But what I want to point out is check out how clever this is, okay?
I feel a little disconnected.
So I feel a little disconnected, okay? There's a disconnect inside the that vocal line. I feel a little pause, disconnected, okay? That's very, very clever. Again, one of the things that's playing into the theme of the track. So the main line or the title line of the track itself is disconnected. It's very meta. That's cool, but another cool thing is that there's something that's filling that gap.
I feel a little disconnect.
Is also serving as an entry for the drop, okay? So that kick starts the drop. That's the entry, okay? Term of art right there, entry.
I feel a little disconnected.
All right, so lots of cool things there. Let's map out how these interact. So I'm just going to come over here. Let's see. Hold on one second. So I want to move this right there. So I want to move one, set one here. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I just wanted to set one on the actual bar. Okay, so I feel a little. Okay. Obviously I'm doing something dumb right now and I'm trying to be too fancy. Let's just move this over here like that. There we go. I feel a little.
I feel a little.
And by the way, that's called a pickup melody. Like when you have a melody that starts before the bar, that's just called a pickup melody.
I feel a little disconnected. Nothing better. Can't. I feel a little disconnected. Nothing better. Can't correct it. I take a little. So effective. I feel a little disconnected.
Okay, cool. So that's the way the vocal plays right there. And then let's see what happens with the synth here. Another cool thing is that this might be taking this idea too far, but this sound right here is playing triplets. Da, 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 da. That's a triplet pattern. So if I come over to triplet grid and go to eighth notes, so if we go, I don't know how long this goes on for. Let's see.
Disconnect.
Okay, so it cuts right there. Now, one thing you could say is that triplet grid pattern is disconnected from the underlying grid pattern. You know what I mean? Because like typically in a beat for a dance track, you have 16th notes, okay? Just straight 16th notes. But now we have a pattern that's dividing a beat into 3 notes instead of 4 notes, okay? And so there's some things that are disconnected in that way. That might be taking it too far. The vocal is definitely disconnected, and that was a conscious choice on the producer's part. Whether this triplet thing was intended to have the same kind of effect, I don't know. Obviously, like a lay person, like someone who doesn't know a lot about music, would not pick up on that. But it does give that vibe, though. You know, like this is a weird kind of pattern. It catches your attention, and that's because it is a triplet pattern over what would otherwise be like just a straight 16th note grid. Okay, so anyway, just wanted to point that out.
Disconnected. Nothing better. Can't correct it. I take a little. So effective. I feel a little. Disconnected. I feel a little.
All right, we have our dial tone here. Also a little bit of an edit here.
I feel a little.
Okay, cool. So let's look at what's going on here. Obviously, this is the star of the show right here, the vocal main line.
I feel a little.
All right, then this just comes over.
I feel a little.
And let me just fix this first one a little bit.
I feel a little.
More like that, isn't it? Okay. And we'll go like this, and we'll go like this, and we'll duplicate that. There we go.
Okay. Feel a little. Disconnected. Nothing better.
Okay, I'm being way too detailed with this right now. Okay.
Feel a little. Feel a little. I feel a little.
There we go. Okay. Anyway, so let's see.
Feel a little. Disconnected. Nothing better. Can't correct it. I take a little.
Okay.
I feel a little.
Okay, so now we definitely have a hat lift. Okay, so let's come over here and we'll do big hat. Okay, and let's just show you what that sounds like. Compare it to earlier sections. So listen.
Nothing better.
Okay, there's a little bit more of a tail. Sound how hear how tight that is?
Nothing better.
Now listen.
Nothing better. Can't correct it.
Okay, so we have a hat lift there. All right, and then we also have a new vocal. So let's add this in. So this is going to be, let's just call this Formant Vox on and on. Okay, now this is going to interact with all the other parts. So we have 3 parts now interacting with each other. So let's listen. Okay, let's map out where that is just so we can see where this is all happening.
Disconnected. Nothing. Disconnected. Nothing better.
So maybe we could just move it down a little bit.
Disconnected. Nothing better. Can't correct it. Disconnected. 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 Disconnected.
Okay, so this is playing on that snare. That's also where the disconnected is playing, and I just wanted to see if they were overlapping.
Disconnected. Disconnect. Disconnect. Disconnected.
Let's see.
Disconnected. Nothing better. Disconnected. Nothing better.
All right, cool. So these are call response as well. Okay, so we have on and on, then we have keep on and on, right?
Disconnected. Nothing better. Can't correct it. I take a little. So effective.
All right, then these continue.
Disconnected. Nothing better. Can't correct it. I take a little. So effective. I feel a little.
Okay, so here we have a different mix. So we're going to do mix equals center. And then this is mix equals kind of like wide. Mix equals wide. Okay, check it out. So listen to the on and it's kind of wide.
Disconnected. Nothing better.
And then here though, you'll hear it center.
Disconnected.
So that sounds like it's more in a room down the middle. Not sure why he's doing that, other than that it's just kind of cool. So let's see what else is going on here. I feel like I might be missing something.
Disconnected. Nothing better. Can't correct it. I take a little. So effective. I feel a little. Disconnected. So effective. I feel a little. Disconnected.
So let's cut that. Let's just cut the drums there, just so we can really see it.
Disconnected.
Okay, so this is a really good example of, let me see.
Did I feel a little? Did I feel a little? Did.
So I was going to say, this is a good example of a P16, but I don't think this is really like that much more dramatic than this one. I mean, here we have a white noise here that gets cut. We have other things cutting. Here we have some cuts as well.
I feel a little disconnected. Did.
And then here we have that vocal filling the gap as well. So not like too dramatic. I think the only thing that really makes this stand up and above is just that riser that kind of brings us into it. So let's keep moving on here. But here what we have is we're starting to see a clean A-B section popping up here. So let's do HD1. And maybe what we could do is HD1. Let's do A section. Okay. And then here, this is going to be HD1, but now we're going to be in the B section. And so the question is how, that's really like when you're making a drop, what's the A and what's the B? That's like the highest level question you could ask yourself. And it's definitely worth planning that out. Okay, so this is the B section. Okay. Okay, so let's move this over. Okay, so now we're getting a lift, and it's going to be the 16th note shaker. Let's see if it's the same hat. Okay, you can hear that tail there. And that tail is still there, so let's do that. Okay, just want to make sure we're getting the drums right. Copying things over. All right. Is there any clap fills that I missed?
I feel a little. Did.
Okay, so no clap fills, so we're good. No ride yet. We got a big hat that's still playing. The main vocal's now gone. So we can see the A section here is really defined by the main vocal playing. And now we have a new synth that's going to come in and define the B section of the track. And so we get this clean A-B structure. And so let's do sound design. This is kind of like a squarey sound. Squarey melody. Okay, let's do that. Okay. This one also detunes a little bit. Okay, detunes. So that's kind of a interesting thing. Parallel between the detuning percussion, detunes at the end, and then just gets more and more detuned. And same with this sound. Kind of detunes there at the end. So it's playing, seems to be playing at the same sections, although this is playing a melody. So, all right, cool. And then we have a little bit of like an effect sound. I am going to map this one out because it's kind of like putting I'm just going to call this up down because that's what is, you know what, let's call this like zippy. All right, and then so this is kind of like acting as a punctuation on this sound right here. All right, and then here we have the Formant vocal playing. So let's move this over, and let's see if it's playing the same part. Okay, we can also hear this zippy thing going on over here. Now there it's going wow, and over here it's doing something else. Boom. So I'm just going to put that there. I'm like, this is such minor stuff. I'm just going to like leave it there. It's just a little ear candy, but it's interesting. So I want to kind of map it for myself. There's all this other LFO kind of stuff too. So right here, you can hear it's like, there's like a long, like you can hear it's really fast. So zippy, I'm just going to do LFO stuff. Okay. All right, so here we have the clap fill. So let's... Okay, cool. So now we can see the differences. So here we have the A section, which is mostly defined by these two elements interacting. So HG1, the A section here, which is 16 bars long, we have the Vox mainline, and that's CRing with or interacting with or call responsing with the SD. Okay, the tuning, the detuning perk. And then we have two lifts here in the second 8-bar section. We have a big hat that comes in, so we're getting more of the full development of the drums. And then we also have this kind of four-monted vocal part, which has some interesting mixing things going on as it kind of progresses. And then when we get into the, and so basically, let me step back. So HG1, the A section, is defined by these two elements, okay? These two elements, that's what it's defined by. And then we just have the lifts. And the lifts are the big hat and the second vocal, the Vox Formant sound, okay? So now when we get into the B section, we have this new squarey kind of melody synth, and that is interacting with or CRing with, call responsing with the Vox, the Formant, okay? And we know that it is deliberately interacting with the Vox, the Formant Vox right here, because this is now playing a different pattern, okay? It's playing like the same pattern over here, but it's not playing as much. Why? Because the producer's making space for this sound, then he's filling the gaps with the vocal Formant, then he's playing the square synth again, and then he's filling the gaps here. So this isn't playing as much, it is deliberately playing in the gaps. Okay, so this is deliberately interacting with each other. Another thing I want to point out is that the detuned perk and the square melody are both playing on the 1 and the 4. So they're playing structurally identical parts. They're just different sounds, but they're doing the same thing. Because if you change that pattern, it would feel off. But it keeps it fresh because there's a different sound, like categorically different things going on. They're playing the same structural parts, which is so key. Like I was talking about earlier in our punks conversation, like sticking to, like if you're going to accent the 1 and the 4 in the drops here, you should probably accent the 1 and the 4 over here as well. But he's keeping it fresh because he's using different sounds. They're different sounds. This one is a more percussive sound. This is like a squarey kind of sound. This is playing a triplet rhythmic pattern. This is playing a more melodic pattern. And so there's differences between these sounds, but structurally they're serving identical functions. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out because, like, I just again want to highlight the importance of structure. Everything here is happening on structural points. Okay, and that's really, really key because I think if a producer would look at this and be like, okay, let's just make these two sounds kind of bounce back and forth. Yes, but don't miss the structural part. Don't miss where these are going and why they're going there. Okay, so let's keep on listening.
Keep on and up.
Okay, so here we have, let's just call this like a white noise down. Whoops. Let's do effects down. Okay, so this is kind of like an accent kind of down effect because it's just a little bit of a white noise. I'm just going to write WN for white noise. Okay, it's actually over here as well. So I'm going to do down/accent. Because it's not really a down effect. A down effect is something that makes you settle the energy. Sometimes down effects and accent effects can kind of get confused. Is that a down or is that an accent? I don't know. But so I'm just going to combine them here. And this one is just obviously accenting. We're not bringing the energy down at all. But this one here is kind of like helping us into a section that's settling the energy. So feels like a down effect, but it's really the same sound. But check it out. Okay, then that white noise goes away. One thing you might wonder is that white noise part of this sound. And so the way we can find that out is let's just play this guy right here. And so there we have the sound without the white noise. Here we get the sound with the white noise. And so this is obviously a different sound. It's not part of the synth, which it makes mixing a million times easier just to have these sounds separated. Okay, so what else is going on now in this last 8 bars of the B section? On and up. Okay, so we don't have the 16th note shaker, so we're starting to settle. I think, let me check. Yeah, we definitely don't have the 16th note shaker. But we still have the big hat, so let's go ahead and put that over. All right, now if you could hear on the left, we have this little boop sound. It's just playing boop, 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 so on the beats. So let's go ahead and map this out. And let's see, let's go 8s for now. And I'm just gonna go across on C like this. Just gonna actually go down to narrow. Is this on narrow? And just gonna move these over because they're distinct, right? They're like boop, boop, boop. Okay, so here we have a bit of an edit. Okay, boom. Okay, there's a lot of things going on here in this transition section, but this is, so we can have a P8, we can have a P, oh sorry, over here. We can have a P8, we can have a P16. This is a great example of a P32, because look at how much more dramatic this punk is compared to like the P16, okay? P16, pretty dramatic, right? We're just doing a cut with a vocal. But listen to this now.
I feel a little
big cut. We've got even like a kind of a roll going on in there, and so much more dramatic. So this is a really good example of that kind of hierarchy of drama that we get with the punks in a drop section, for example. So let's go ahead and color this guy red. There we go. So that's and let's kind of map out. Let's just kind of figure out what's going on here. So we have the boops playing. Okay. We don't have the vocal. Do we have it here? So this is kind of like a snare roll thing. I'm just going to put like a question mark because it's like it's doing what a snare roll would do, but it's like maybe not a snare roll. And this is definitely gaining up. Okay, and it's playing 16ths. And so this would be a trans element, okay? So here we have, we're chilling. Okay, we're just coming in, we're playing our parts. Here we're gonna get a lift section. Then when we get into HD1, the B section, here we're gonna chill again. We're just chilling. We just have like the drums, we have the hooks playing, we're not like going anywhere. And then here we are starting to settle, and by taking away that 16th note shaker, and then we are also starting to transition because we have specific transition elements or sounds. So we have the gain up sound here, the snare roll thing. And then we also have this boop thing, which is gaining up. So these are two distinct let's close this. We have two distinct transition elements. So let's just write trans, and this gains up. And this is also a trans element. Trans for transition. So bass is still playing.
I feel a little disconnected.
Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and come over here. So this is like still part of HD1. I wouldn't call this part of the B section. We'll look at this in a little bit. But let's go ahead and move some things over. So here we have this.
Disconnected.
So we're coming back to the intro elements here, or the first elements. Boom. Like this.
I feel a little disconnected. Nothing better. Can't correct it. I take a little on and on. Keep on and on.
So here you can hear that we don't have the big hat.
On and on.
And here it is there, but here it is not there. Watch. Really tight.
Disconnected. Nothing better. Can't correct it. I take a little. So effective. I feel a little disconnected. 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 Disconnected.
Okay.
I feel a little disconnected. Disconnected.
Okay, so here we're going to get a disconnected rep down, okay? And that's going to go into the main break and build. So again, I'm putting this on a different track just again so we can see how many different vocal techniques there are, almost from like just one source, all right? So let's go ahead.
Disconnected. 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 Nothing better. Can't correct it.
Okay, let's see.
Disconnected.
I'm going to color this purple, and we'll circle back around to why this is. But what you can see here is we have the HC section is 32 bars. We have a clean A, we have a clean B. Then we kind of move back into the elements from the A section here for 8 bars, and that just drops us then into the build section. Okay, so this section is really simple. It's just your basic beat, the bass line, the main line, and then that tuning, that detuning perk sound that's playing the triplet rhythm.
Disconnected. Disconnected. Disconnected.
All right.
So effective. I feel a little disconnected. 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 Disconnected.
And there's also kind of like a reverse kind of vocal thing. You can hear it.
Disconnected. 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 Disconnected.
All right, so let's see if that dial tone is anywhere else.
I feel a little.
Not there.
Keep on and on.
Not there.
I feel a little.
Okay, it's there. Okay, so I guess it was just over here. It hasn't come back yet, but it definitely will. So let's see.
Disconnected. 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 Disconnected.
All right, now we have a cliff dive, and let's go ahead and jump into the main break and build here. Bam, and then I'll just go like this, and this is going to be MBB for main break and build. All right, definitely a new sound design sound. So let's go SD. This is kind of like a sine melody, but I know this is going to open up. But for now, let's just kind of label it a sine melody, sine-ish. Okay, let's do sine-ish just for people that want to be really nitpicky. And this sine melody is simply playing the exact same melody that the SD2, the, what's it called? The square melody was playing. Let's move these guys up top because they're kind of like more important. Okay, so is this sine melody is playing the same thing as the square melody. Check it out. And then so the side melody is just repeating that over. Okay, so I forgot, this track has a weird kind of structure with this build. It's basically a 24-bar build. There's a little, what I call payoff extension over here, which extends it a little bit beyond 24 bars, and we'll cover that. But this is basically a 24-bar build. It has like 3 kind of 8-bar sections for the most part. But that's what I mean, is it doesn't have 3 8-bar sections, right? 3 times 8 is 24. It has a weird kind of structure. It has 4-bar, 8-bar, 8-bar, 4-bar. And so kind of interesting. So that's different. Remember how I said earlier, there's some things in this track that are just so classic, but then there's some other things where it deviates a little bit. And so let's just kind of, and this is one of them. This is kind of like the deviation from, I guess you could say, like the norm. And so let's mark that up when it happens. So here we definitely have some down effects. So let's mark that. We have the disconnected rep down into the main break and build. We also have the SD, the signish melody. And we have a clap. I almost completely didn't hear that. Okay, it's totally possible that I'm not hearing other things, but yeah, I didn't hear that. So let's put that in. And so, you know what, this is kind of a big deal-ish, this Vox trans. So this is going to be a reverse rev Vox into delay. I don't know if this is going to come up again. Okay, but you can hear it come up. So this creeps up. So this is, let's see, this gains up, right? Gain up. And then we have the little pong delay. So ping pong delay, right? Okay, and so this is from the on and on. Whatever. It's, you know, it's just, I don't need to mark that. Okay, so let's get the on and on over here. Where is it? This guy. So probably this. So, and so let's see. So let's start labeling these. So this is MBBA, and that is just, I'm going to call this a chill. I'm not going to go into chill, lift, and trans. I kind of teased it, but basically, I guess I am. Chill, lift, and trans. Those are really the 3 things that you can do in any section. You can have a chill section where you're just chilling. That was like right here. We are just chilling. We are listening to the hooks. We are listening to the sound design. The vocal and the sound design, we're just chilling. And then in the next section, the next 8-bar sections, we lift the energy. Okay, that is like at the highest level what's going on there. There's a lift in energy. What is it? Well, we're just lifting it through the hat, and we're lifting it through the Formant vocal. So chill, lift. Then in HD 1B, we get a new chill section. What is that new chill section? It is the square melody, and it is that Formant vocal, those 2 guys going back and forth. We're chilling, we're dancing to the groove, we're listening to these new hooks, we're having a good time, we don't need to go anywhere, then we're just chilling. And then in the second 8-bar section of the B section, then we are transitioning. Okay, we are transitioning. So this is a trans section. So chill, lift, chill, trans. That's kind of the highest level layout of this drop so far. Okay, and the transition, what are the trans elements? Okay, if you have a transition section, there has to be a sound that is transitioning. At least one. So one of them is the snare roll thing, and then the other one is the little boop synth that's just kind of coming up in volume. Those are your trans elements. We are transitioning into a new section. Again, we're going to cover this later. This section is interesting because it's certainly in this track, it seems like it belongs to the drop. Okay, absolutely. There's no reason why you should think that this kind of belongs to a break section. But here, it could also, like in another track, if you took out like the clap and the hat, it would be like a strip. and that would definitely belong to the main break and build in the way that I break things down. So this track, again, this section right here, this 8-bar section, it kind of breaks away from this clean A-B. Obviously this track is huge, so we can't really judge, but I do think this section right here is having a bit of an identity crisis. It's in purgatory. It can't decide whether it's part of the drop or part of the break. If you wanted to make it part of the break, just take out the hat and the clap, and then you just have the kick, the bass, the vocals, and then there you go. Now you've stepped the energy way down, and now we're definitively in the break section. We're settling that energy to get to the lowest part of the track, the basement. And anyway, let's cover this later, but let's get back to chill, lift, and trans. This would be an example of settling the energy, because we're cutting things out and we're stepping the energy down. Here we're really in a new chill section, so that's why I'm writing chill right here. So we're just chilling, okay? We're listening to the vocal, kind of repeat, and then yes, there is a little bit of a sound that transitions us into the next section, but you could just feel like coming out of here, this is like we're just supposed to be chilling. Watch. Okay, this is like break time. This is like, break time. Okay, so that's a chill energy, a chill vibe. And so it's all about like the emotional undercurrent, the emotional subtext of the track. Chill, lift, or trans. You can have a section that's both a lift and a trans, because if you imagine like if the shaker came over here and then the ride came over here, then this would obviously be a lift section, but at the same time we have transition elements, so you can have a section be both a lift and a trans. But typically a chill section is just going to be a chill section. Anyway, so coming over here, we're going to define the first 4 bars here as a chill section. And again, what's unique about this build is that it's structured weird. It has 4 bars, then 8 bars, then 8 bars, and then 4 bars. And that's different because typically it would be 8 bars, 8 bars, 8 bars. Okay, but again, this is a little bit unique here. And so next, we start the next 8-bar section. So I'm going to pop this guy, cut him out, and then we'll do MBB, MBB, B, and this is, let's see what this is. So this is a lift because we're bringing in that hook right here, right? Okay, and we're getting a hint of some transition elements, okay? You can hear this hollow riser in the background, so I'm just going to map this. So let's just do hollow riser, low, okay? Okay. Okay, we have our disconnected is continuing to go down, and we have the clap still playing. I forgot to label this as just clap. And same with this. This is just clap. There we go. And then, of course, we have our sine-ish melody continuing. And you can hear a hint of this kind of like snare roll thing coming up. So this is just like the tops. You can hear it. It's like it almost sounds like a shaker. I'm just going to write that. It sounds like a shaker, okay? And so, like, if you wanted to count this as a trans section, like transition, that's cool. But for me, this is like a lift, and we're just kind of teasing the transition. Like, this is going to, like, way down here, this is going to be that proper transition or build, all right? And so we'll get there, but let's just keep on mapping this out. See, so obviously this gains up over time, gains up that little snare roll thing. And the clap is going out into a reverb. So this is a classic grow, okay? Growing into verb, okay? We'll cover that in a second. All right, so now we're getting another lift here, which is going to be that main vocal line. So let's drag this guy over. And this is going to, again, play for 8 bars. And so here, this is going to be, let's do lift Formant. And then this guy is going to be another lift and a bass lift. So MBBC. And this is going to be lift, main line, and bass. Okay?
Disconnected. Nothing but
All right, so this obviously is going over. The clap is going over. What is this? The snare roll thing's probably going over. What about the disconnected rep down?
On and on, keep on and on, on and on, keep on and
I
on,
feel a little
on and on.
disconnected.
That's still going. Okay, well, obviously we have the bass coming in now, so let's map that. This is going to be an HP for high pass.
Disconnect.
Okay, we still have the on and on vocal going. Remember, these are now, this is 8 bars. So again, this is 4 bars, 8 bars, 8 bars. Again, very unique. I cannot think of another track that does this, so I don't think this is a technique really that you should take away from the track. I'm just really breaking it down so we can make sense of these things. But if you wanted to extend this 4 bars and make it an 8-bar section, that's what I would do. But, you know, whatever. Let's just keep going.
Disconnected. Nothing better. Can't correct it. I take a little.
Okay, we're starting to hear this starts to open. Okay, whatever it is, this is starting to open up and we're starting to get some harmonics.
So effective. I feel a little disconnected. 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 Disconnected.
Okay, so now we're having a new disconnected repetition.
So
But I'm just trying to listen for this guy here.
I feel a little disconnected. 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 Disconnected.
Okay, so let's map this guy. So this is Vox disconnected and main, I guess. I'm not sure. Let's do into HD2, and then this is disconnected rep into MBB. Okay, let's do it that way. Disconnected rep. All right. Let's see. I'm going to do like that. There we go. That works. Okay, so let's color this. There we go.
Disconnected. 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 Disconnected.
Okay, so here we're now getting a kick.
I feel a little disconnected. 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 Disconnected.
The cool thing, and we're getting no clap. And so the cool thing about this, I mean, this is interesting. I'm not sure when or how I would think to do this in a track, but it's now that I've heard it, I could experiment with it. But the cool thing about this is when we're picking up the pace of energy, an easy way to do that is to pick up the speed of the rhythm. And so the clap is just playing on the 2 and the 4, right? But when the kick comes in, the kick is going to be playing on the 1, 2, and 4. Oh, I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's automatically picking up the rhythm. And so we're speeding up the rhythm, but we're doing it with a different sound. It's done in a very natural way because it's the kick. But at the same time, what I want to get across here is that we are increasing the rhythmic energy. We are building tension. That's what this does. Not just a switch to the kick drum to be creative, is a switch to the kick drum to build more tension, to make the rhythm faster. Okay.
Disconnected. Disconnected. Disconnected.
Okay. Now this is the proper build. So I'm going to do, or trans. Okay. MBBD. This is build/trans. Okay. And so what are the build elements? There's typically 5. You have the rep, roll, rise, grow, and pipo. Okay, so the rep is the repetition, and that's going to be from the vocal. Typically, if you're going to do a proper build section, you're going to have some kind of hook repetition, whether that's going to be a sound design repetition or a vocal repetition. In this case, we have both. Okay, we have this vocal repetition, but we also have the sound design repetition with the sign melody that's opening and growing.
Disconnected.
So we have those 2 things repping, hook rep. So that's check 1, okay? So rep roll. Roll is going to come from a snare roll or a kick roll. And so that's just going to be this guy. Okay, we have the roll.
Disconnected.
Sounds kind of more like a shaker on top. Like I think it's going to open up, going to get a little bit of lows. Let's see.
Disconnected. 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 Disconnected.
For right now, I can't really pick out the kind of mids of the snare. But this is the roll. Okay, this is the sound that's functioning as like what a snare roll would do, like if you're going to use a 9 or something. So you have a rep, you have a roll, you have a rise. You definitely have risers. Okay.
Disconnected. Nothing better. Can't correct it. I take a little. So effective. I feel a little. Disconnected.
So you can hear that, right? Okay, so rep, roll, rise, grow. Grow is where you expand the space. This is typically done with a reverb. And so here with the clap, for example, we have growing with the reverb here.
So effective.
So let's listen over here, see what's causing the growing sensation.
Disconnected.
And so the disconnected is growing into verb. Okay, so the disconnected is the obvious thing that's standing out. Another thing is that this is also another way to grow a sound. So we started out here with the sine melody as just a sine wave, basically. But now when we listen, it's opened up and it's grown, it's expanded. And so that's another example of growing the space.
Disconnected.
So now we have harmonics, and so that gives another sensation of expansion or growing. And so we have rep, roll, rise, grow, and then we need the pipo. Okay, pipo again is pattern, interrupt, and payoff. So let's listen.
Disconnected.
There's our pattern interrupt. Okay.
Disconnected.
And you know what? I think the bass is actually growing into verb, but okay, so let's cut all this because this is a pretty big moment here.
Disconnected.
Okay.
Disconnected.
Okay, so all this stuff we're cutting.
Disconnected.
Okay, finally we're getting that dial tone here. And this is...
I feel a little.
Okay. So now, so again, just to go over the build section, we got those 5 things: the rep, roll, rise, grow, and we have the pipo. We have the pattern interrupt. Okay, remember this is, we're establishing the pattern. This is a transition build pattern, simply because we have that the 16th note snare roll, we have the growing elements, we have the hook repetitions. All those things are establishing a pattern of building tension. Then boom, that gets cut. Okay, pattern interrupt, that it just grabs a listener. Even though every single track on planet Earth, like typically will do this, you'll grow the energy in this way, we just can't help it. It naturally builds energy for us, just the way that humans are. All these things, like the faster rhythms, the repetition, it just builds tension. Doesn't matter how many times we hear it, it builds tension. Then when we take it away, it still creates a sensation. Okay, it's still that pattern interrupt where we get knocked off kilter for a little bit, and then we have some new sounds that kind of come in, fill the space, provide some excitement, and then boom, we explode back into the drop, and that's going to be your pipo. It doesn't matter. Those are the 5 ingredients typically, and they always work, and they're being used here really well. The only unique thing about this whole drop section, actually there's 2 unique things. The first unique thing is that we kind of had this weird layout with the 4 bars with the chill section, then we lift with the 4-mount vocal, we lift with the main vocal, then for 4 bars we go into the build section. And then the second unique thing about this track is we have what's called a payoff extension. Now this is actually a lot less common than I think most people realize. A payoff extension is where you have this payoff moment, but it's extended for a little bit longer. So typically the drop would come in right there, okay? So actually what I want to do is I want to get that vocal in there. So let's go like this. Okay, so this is what it would normally feel like.
Disconnected. I feel a little.
Okay, so that's where the drop starts on time. Okay, now obviously it feels weird here because they have that dial tone that's kind of chopped off. But let me say right now that I hear payoff extensions a lot through when I get submissions for track feedback, and most of the time I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of payoff extensions because, like, we have, just like I was saying, it's just in humans, ingrained in us to feel tension when these kinds of things happen. Another thing is that subconsciously we know when these drops are supposed to land. We know them, okay? We know them consciously as producers, but people who listen to music, they know it too, just on an intuitive level. They wouldn't be able to articulate what's going on. They just know when it should happen. And if it doesn't happen, they don't feel good. Okay, they might like think, oh, well, that was interesting, but you don't want the listener to think, oh, that was interesting. You want them to think, whoa, you just want them to blow their mind, right? Or, well, you don't want them to blow their mind. That's terrible. You want to blow their mind, okay? So right here, like, this is building tension. I'm promising. And then you deliver on late. It's like getting a late package from Amazon. It just sucks, okay? And so that's how I feel 99% of the time. And if you think about, like, maybe 95% of the time, if you think about someone in the club, like, when they get to this moment, this is where the moment should drop. And if the drop's not on time, then you're kind of violating their internal clock. And they think it should happen here, so they're kind of like looking around at everybody else, being like, what should I do? What should I do? And then it kicks in, and they're like, oh, okay, now I'll start dancing again. That's like the last emotion you ever want anybody to ever feel when at this moment. This is the most important moment of the track. And if you don't drop it on time, you're going to make most people feel confused. They feel stupid. They're going to be looking around being like, wait, did I miss something? That's not what you want, because you're knocking them out of the moment. What you want them to do is just, man, deliver that drop on time, because this is the time where you want to meet expectations. There's times to deny expectations, like back here when we were doing this. Like I said here, when we have this response to the call, but we're not delivering the response over here. We're denying expectations and filling it with a different sound. That's a cool little denial of expectations. Another denial of expectations is when you do a pattern interrupt. Doesn't matter how many times you hear it, we are expecting this to continue because that's just the pattern. We expect it to continue. The pattern gets interrupted. Our expectations of continuation are denied. We get a nice little payoff moment, and then boom, it explodes. But this is where we want to meet expectations 95% of the time, okay? Now, with that said, this is really cool for this track, okay? The reason why is because of the theme of the track. Okay, now this is still a little bit too cerebral for my taste for a listener. I don't know if a listener would pick up on the meta aspects of this, but if you think about it, this drop is now disconnected from where it should be. Okay, so we have that dial tone. The dial tone is what's going over where the drop should happen. I really think this was conscious on the producer's part. Okay, we are disconnecting the main drop from where it should be. And we have the dial tone over where it should be. Like, that's so meta that it just makes me laugh. But I don't know if maybe most people would pick up on that. Like, maybe producers, I think, would pick up on it, but I don't know if like a lay person would. I still think that they would be, especially if they're drunk or on drugs or something. Like, I don't know. I think they would think it's cool, because in the same way that like everybody they think that payoff extensions are cool because they're like, oh, that was interesting. But again, that's not what you want people to feel. You want people to just lock into the moment at this point. You just want them to just be like so excited, peak excitement right here. And confusion is not peak excitement. It's like the opposite. It's the total opposite. You want them to be just locked into the moment. And by having a payoff extension, you're knocking them out of the moment. And so again, I'm not 100% a fan of this, but I get how this fits into the track thematically. And so I'll get off my little high horse here in my rant. I do think this is cool when you understand what the producer is doing here, but I don't know how many people, like lay listeners, are going to catch on to that. But anyway, end of rant. This is a payoff extension. We've got the 5 elements of the build: the rep, the roll, the rise, the grow, and the pipo. And now let's just go ahead and go into HD2. I'd love to hear your thoughts on pipo extension or payoff extensions, and what you think about my little breakdown here. But other than that, let's just keep on going. And I know with HD2 here, HD2, I don't know if I mentioned this, HD just stands for hook drop, okay? So over here we have HD1, which is a hook drop, because we're putting proper hooks over it, right? Look, we have a vocal mainline, we have a detuning synth, then we have that 4-mont vocal in the B section, and we have the squarey melody. So those are all the star hooks of the track, and they're going over the drop section. And that's why this is called a hook drop. That's why this is called a bass drop, because a bass drop just gives you the bass, and we have a little bit of a lift or a transition, but then with the hook drops, we have proper hooks over them. Okay, and then same with HD2. So HD2 over here is hook drop 2. Let's go ahead and write this out. So HD2. Okay, and this is going to be divided in the exact same way, which is going to be an A section. Let's do that. And then we're going to have a B section. Now the A section, the interesting thing about HD2 of this track is that it's basically HD1 reversed. So I'm going to just cheat a little bit here, and I'm just going to grab these elements, and then we will kind of work backwards and kind of subtract things away from them. So I'm going to take this guy over here, and then we will move him over there. And another annoying thing about payoff section, or extended payoff sections, now I have to work with these weird grid values. Anyway, okay, so here we go. Okay, so now we're going into HD2. I've talked for like 10 minutes now. Let's play some freaking music.
Disconnected. I feel a little.
Okay, so right away we go into a drop section with the square melody. Again, this is just HD1 in reverse. So HD1 started with the main line and the percussion synth.
Disconnected.
And then HD1B section here, that's where we got the squarey thing. And so now we're starting HD2 with the squarey thing. Okay, we're getting all the same things. We have the white noise on top. We have the little zippy thing. Let's just check the beat. We definitely have the beat. We have the bass. Do we have a 16th note shaker? We do have a 16th note shaker. We also have a ride. So this is kind of an elevation above HD1. Here we have the ride in the second half of the bass drop here, but then now we're bringing the ride back here over HD2. So this is an elevation over HD1. Typically, this isn't like necessary, but if you're thinking in terms of like next level things you could do to a track, or little boosters that you can apply to a track, doing any kind of elevation on HD2 over HD1 is just going to add a little bit of extra. And so even something as simple as a ride here, I just call that an elevation. An elevation is whatever HD2 has over and above what's going on in HD1. Okay, so let's go ahead and listen. Okay, but here we don't have the vocals. We will get them again over here, but let's just keep listening. Okay, so we have a cut. Let's just put this here like that. We have, we also have the clap fill, and then we have the ride. We have, do we have a big hat? Let's see if we have that. Let's see. Yeah, we do, because you can feel the openness of that hat as opposed to the closedness of this hat.
Nothing better.
Tight. Okay, so then here we have the square melody again at the 4. We have the zippy stuff, so listen to the LFO thing here. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, and then we have our little P8. Okay, so one thing that's really cool here is that we're doing something different. what's going on here? Okay, so one thing that's different is that we're getting the faster version of this vocal. In HD1, okay, we saw the square synth interact with the floor-mounted vocal. The square would play, then the vocal. Square, floor-mount vocal. Square, floor-mount vocal. See how they alternate here? But in this drop, it's just the floor-mount vocal is just playing over the top of the square, okay? Okay, we also have the snare roll thing coming up just as before, so a lot of just copied elements, but some variation, and that's important. It's kind of a subtle variation. Let's see if we have everything. Let's see if we have the 16th note shaker. Okay, we don't have the 16th note shaker or the ride. And so, I mean, to some degree, it really feels like the producer copied and pasted, there's nothing wrong with that, copied and pasted a lot of these things over, but then copied other things over too, like, or didn't copy things. So if you look at this, where this is the floor-mount vocal in HD1A, it's the exact same in HD1B. It starts playing with the more dense pattern, and then it moves into the more sparse pattern. But here in HD2, it starts again with that dense pattern, but at the same time, other things are flipped. So it's kind of interesting. But the point is, what we need to do is zoom out and define the HD1, HD2A sections and HD2B sections. Okay, but let's just get them in place before we do that. Even his boop sound is here, right? See, so I just copied that over. So a lot of the stuff is just copied. Okay, so that sounds like the detuned sound. So we have an SD detune perk down effects. Okay, that. So just like this.
I feel a little.
Yeah, that sounds kind of like a loopy thing that you would do, where you can change the size of a loop. Like if I go get, oh gosh, let's see. If you had a sound and then you wanted to change the loop length of it, that's what it sounds like. Where it's going. So it starts with a shorter loop length, and then it just increases in loop length. So.
I feel a little. I feel a little.
Okay, so let's see what else is going on here, because this is a nice little edit section. So, okay, boom, there we go.
I feel a little.
So same thing, we have that mix move to the center. So listen right here. So that's wide, and then here with the floor-mount vocal, the mix moves to the center. So again, wide. Then center.
I feel a little.
Okay, so this is not there.
I feel.
Okay, so this extends a little bit.
I feel a little. I feel a little. I feel a little. I feel a little. I feel a little.
Okay.
I feel a little. I feel a little. I feel a little.
Okay, that white noise goes away.
I feel a little.
Okay, then we get the Vox main line.
I feel a little.
And then, of course, the Vox main line plays with the detuned perk sound.
Disconnected. Nothing.
Okay, so you can definitely hear the settled energy going on here. So you can hear the big hat there, and then the big hat goes away here. This is just like the tighter hat.
Disconnected. Nothing better. Can't correct it.
Just gonna make sure, I need to come over to a section where, okay, yeah, so this one definitely doesn't have the big hat, then here it does.
Nothing better.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure.
Disconnected. Nothing better. Can't correct it. I take a little. So effective. I feel a little. Disconnected. I feel it.
Okay, so then here we have like a little vocal delay formant, or kind of a pitched delay. So let's.
Disconnected. I feel a little.
Okay, so just there we go. Just a little bit of a extra little spice there.
Disconnected. I feel a little. Disconnected. I feel a little. I feel a little. I feel a little.
Okay, we don't have the dial tone here. That was copied over. Let me just check to see if we have the dial tone anywhere over here.
I feel a little.
Okay, but you can see here, this is a good example of a P16. This is so here's a P16.
I feel a little.
Okay, that's way more dramatic than over here. Okay, so there's a P8, P16. The P4s in the drops are taken care of mostly by the big hooks. So this guy, that's a P4, this is a P4. All right, same with when we get over to the B section, P4, P8.
I feel a little.
So a little bit of a cut with a vocal, P4.
So effective.
And then P16 / P32. Okay, so this is a little bit more subtle, but we are transitioning into the outro, so we don't really need things to get more dramatic or exaggerated, I guess. So yeah, so this is the kind of the one that stands out over here. But let's see.
I feel a little. Disconnected. Nothing but.
So we have the big hat. It really seems like they copied the drums in particular over and just flipped them. And then, yeah, so let's see.
Disconnected. I feel a little. Disconnected. Nothing better. Can't correct it. I take a little. So effective. I feel a little. Disconnected. 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 Disconnected.
Okay, and then we have the dial tone. Kind of extends into the next part a little bit, which is cool. All right, and then we have the intro, outro. So let's just move these guys over like that. Whoops. Okay. So let's get an 8-bar. Okay, so no big hat, but we do have a ride. Okay, a little bit of white noise on the way up. Okay, dial tone again. Okay, and then we have those vocal punks from the intro. So let's just do like keep punks. Let's just call them keep punks. And let's bring these over to the outro, which is right here. So I'm just going to label this outro. Okay, so we can, and so again, you can see kind of what I was talking about earlier. This HT2 section has a clear AB section, it's 32 bars. Unequivocally, this is the drop. And that's why, like, this section to me lives in a bit of a purgatory. It has kind of an identity crisis, because this is a clean AB 32 bar drop section, and then we get this tag with the A section back, which is kind of weird. Kind of settles us down, and so this one is it's hard to know whether it really belongs to the drop or to the break. It doesn't really matter, but yeah, I just want to point that out. Because look at this. I mean, same thing, pretty much, just reversed. Mirror images in a way. So no ride over here. We got the keep. All right, so let's bring the keep on and on over here. Keep on. So here we have a kind of, again, a reverse of the intro. So the intro had the keep on and on as the response. Here we have the keep, and then we have, as the first response, the dial tone. So that's just kind of funny. And what else is going on here? So we also have a clap fill. So let's put that in here. And then we have the outro rep, Vox outro rep, on and on. Okay, where was the intro rep? Intro rep, here we go. So let's move these down here. So, and so this is just on and on, right? And so again, you can see how many different ways the vocal was used in this track. And it's better than just like having just a couple lines, because you could see, okay, man, like when I have a vocal, here's all these things that I could do to keep the track interesting. Some rep, some delays, some foremounting some of the lines, call responsing with the synths in different ways, because that formant vocal like would play kind of in a more dense pattern, and then it would also play in a more sparse pattern. So yeah, lots of different, and that's why it's cool, like listing out all the vocal techniques this way, because we can see what I like to call the mileage, how to get mileage out of a vocal. Well, here's all the techniques that were done in this track on a particular vocal, right? Vocal punks, intro teases, reps, formants, call responding, like all sorts of stuff. So let's see, let's color this, and obviously this is going to be an HP. This is for a high pass, high pass. So this is just gaining down. There you go. Okay, cool. So there we go with that. Very nice. I definitely have some last things to say about it, and I have a doc here of things that I wrote down while listening to this track. Obviously, like most tracks, it has the kind of like modern tech house arrangement formula with the intro, bass drop, break 1, HD1, MBB, HD2, and outro. We saw that. That's typical. And so let's just cover some of the things that we saw. So in the intro, we had the intro transition element. So right off the bat, that was something we pointed out. Just starts and kind of creeps up. Also has the intro Vox tease. Okay, that's something that's very typical of Vox tease. I should actually say right before the bass drop. Okay, bass drop, obviously it's a proper A-B bass drop. We're just introducing the bass line. And then we get A-B bass drop is like there's two sections, typically 16 bars in total. The second 8 bars has a lift. And here we have the B lift, which is just a ride. So here we start off with just the bass drop. Just the bass, a little bit of the punks. But then we get the ride lift in the B section of the bass drop. Okay, so we have a B lift. Classic Vox punks at the P4 and P8, that's CR. So here we have the keep. Here we have the keep on and on. And then here we have a little denial of expectation. So we have the keep, and then we have the dial tone as the response. And then dial. then the dial tone there, okay? So hooks, okay, classic example, perfect example of punks, hooks, and CR. So we're using hooks as the punks. You don't have to, you could use drums, but like taking things to the next level, you use hooks as your punks. And even better, the hooks are call responding, okay? But other than that, it's no more, no less. There is the clap fill on the P8 to make it more dramatic. The only improvement here, quote unquote, would be if the punks, the vocal punks, were title punks, meaning they're actually saying the title of the track. That's really the only way to take this just a step up to the next level. Because the more you could repeat the title, the more people are going to remember it. So if you could get that title into the punk situation, it's going to be good. So P16 is the dial tone, first time introducing it, also plays into the theme of being disconnected, also denies expectations in the CR pattern. Okay, people are expecting keep on and on, but they don't get that response. They get the dial tone. Okay, so B1, break one. This is interesting because it's just about as bland as it gets, right? Love that this is empty. Nothing filling it makes the drop. Nothing filling it makes the drop with the lead vocal feel bigger. So yeah, when that vocal comes in after this dry build section or break section, it's so exciting. Watch.
I feel a little disconnected.
Yeah, just super exciting right there. Barely even a transition, just a little white noise here. Just a little bit of white noise and then a pipo. It's a good example of how a break can be super simple. It doesn't need all the build elements, the rep, roll, rise, grow, and pipo. It just keeps the groove going and sets up HD1. That's what this is doing. It doesn't need all those build elements. This one only has, or even the break elements. The break elements were those three that I was talking about, which is define the break with a high pass, get it Atmos, and to define the vibe a little bit more, then introduce something new. This is only defining the break with a high pass. It doesn't have anything new. It doesn't have an Atmos, so it's really just minimal. And then same with the build elements. Like there's no crazy build elements here. There's crazy build elements over here, but over here, it doesn't need to be that crazy. Okay, so again, this is a good example of how you can get away with the less in the break one. Doesn't need any of the build elements, just keeps the groove going and sets up HD1, does so as minimally as possible, defines the break with a high pass, a minimal transition element, which is the white noise, as a minimal pipo. Literally the beat just stops and then you have a pickup melody. This pipo is literally just cutting the groove and using the pickup vox melody into HD1. Okay, I also like how this break offers no expectations. There's no hooks, tease, makes the hooks in HD1 pop. It also helps the MBB, the main break and build even more tension because there's a proper build there. There's basically nothing going on in break one, so there's a nice contrast there. But I don't think that this technique of having such a sparse break is something that can be used in every track. It's just a cool idea every now and then. So HD1, okay? HD1, we have the AABBA structure, where A is where we have the first vocal, the main line interacting with that perk detuning synth, so Vox 1 and SD1 I'm calling it here. And then the B section, right, we're defining what this drop is in the A and the B section, that high level. In the B section we have the call response interaction with the second vocal, which is that Formant vocal, and also sound design 2, which is that square melody. Okay, so here's vocal 1 with SD1, sound design 1.
Disconnected.
Here's vocal 2 with sound design 2. And in both cases, the vocals and the sound design are call responding with each other. Another thing is that these guys are, I think I bring this up, so we'll see. Let's see. Okay, so clean AB for the first 32, we get another A section before MBB. This last A section could be seen as a step down into MBB. That's something we talked about. HD1B has a lift. It's just the big hat right here. So here's HD1, and then that second 8-bar section, we just get that big hat. So before,
nothing better.
after,
Nothing better.
just that bigger hat. Okay, and then we have a B section lift, which is the 16th note shaker. So this guy right here. So without it, and then here you're going to hear that 16th note shaker. Okay. HG1E, so this is, if we divide, instead of looking at A section, B section, if I just do HG1A, B, C, D, E, so counting every 8-bar section, so HG1E here settles by taking away the 16th note. Actually, we take the 16th there, so I'm just going to get rid of that note. See, the vocals are very clever. I feel a little disconnected. The phrase is disconnected from itself, both in time, and SD1, Sound Design 1, plays in that disconnection gap. You don't need your vocals to be this clever, but it is definitely cool. I like the four-monted vocal because it's simple. It's a simple way to take one vocal that you have, take another line from that vocal and four-mont it to make it sound like a different singer or a different line. Okay, this is just another quote-unquote mileage technique, like I was telling you about, how to get more mileage out of your vocals and your hooks. Just look at the amount of techniques that were used here. So getting a lot of mileage out of a vocal there. You can see that the vocal 2 deliberately call responds with SD2 because the vocal plays twice as much in as a lift in HG1B, and then it doesn't play as much in HG1C because it's just filling the gaps or CRing with SD2. So what I mean here is that we can see that the four-mont vocal here is playing more often, right? And then we can see that it doesn't play as often over here because it is responding to, it is deliberately responding, that's the point, is that it is intentionally, deliberately responding to the squarey synth right here, all right? You can see that V2, yeah, so there we go. And just that's the whole key, is that this was a deliberate move to get these two to kind of bounce back and forth and alternate and call respond. Notice that SD1 and SD2 are both starting on the 1 and the 4, so they're playing the same structural function. So this SD1 here, SD2 here, both playing on the 1 and the 4, and so the kind of structural function that this guy's playing is extending over here just with a different sound, and we already talked about that. I like that the zippy effect sound puts an end or period to the SD2 melody. So check this out. So this guy right here, it just kind of, it just ends this. It just puts like a period on it. So it's kind of a cool thing to do. Okay, I really like that. And there's a more dramatic version of that going on over here. The white noise above SD2 doesn't actually belong to SD2. It's just some, we already looked at that. But if we play this, there's no white noise on top. Here there is. And so that's just like an accent effect with that white noise on top there. Just another structural accent, accenting that start of the 8 bars. The last 8 bars, HTE, is more like a strip than anything. A strip is a section where you take out the, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a bunch of question marks right here. Okay, strip is where you would take out the everything but like the kick, the bass, the vocals, the hook. Okay, that's what a strip is, because it is like a mega step down from this. So if you stepped into here, you're just going to get kick, bass, vocals. You've definitely heard that before, but this section continues things. Which is interesting and confusing at the same time. And as I say, it's living in purgatory land. Really doesn't make much sense as it is. But it obviously works because the track is so huge. Just feels like it's having an identity crisis. It doesn't know whether it's part of the drop or part of the break. I personally like when things are cleanly defined, when the structural identity and sectional identity, sectional clarity. And then from that kind of purgatory land here, we go into a 24-bar build, which has a weird structure in and of itself. Then you go into a 24-bar build, so it definitely could have been a strip and part of the MBB for a 32-bar build, plus the extension, the payoff extension. But this is a good example of defining identities of sections. Of like, this one's kind of confusing to me. Maybe it's not a big deal at all. It's probably not a big deal, but again, I think it would take it just a step further if we just took a little bit more away, so it felt like more of a step down. It is definitely a step down, which is important because we're stepping down the energy to get to the basement of the track right here. But I think maybe could have benefited, I think, a little bit more with a little bit more of a step down. Okay, main break and build. We just cliff dive. Boom. From here, we just cliff dive down into the basement. I'm just going to write that because I like that word now. 24. This is like the bottom of the track. Okay, 24 bar, but the divisions are 4, 8, 8, 4. We already saw that. And we map that out. So we have 4 bar chill section, 8 bar lift, 8 bar lift, and then we have a 4 bar build trans. And then we get into HD2. Payoff extension. I say this is excusable because of the track theme, with the theme being disconnected. So we have HD2 disconnected from where it would otherwise land. The vocal pickup melody provides the pipo pulse. So a pulse is like when something here before you get into the next section gives you the timing. And so this would really, really not work if there was nothing giving you the timing. If it was just this tone right here, then that would just not be good. But the fact that we have a vocal, and we've heard this vocal throughout the track starting so many sections,
I feel a little.
the reason why that this also helps and works is because this vocal allows people to reorient themselves. And so that's another reason why this works, is because it has a quote-unquote pulse, reintroduces the pulse, calls back to other pulses that helps you know where you are, so that way when this lands, you don't feel like a confused moron. You can dance again, okay?
I feel a little.
Awesome. So there we go. And so that's MBB. HG2, clean 32 bars. We pointed that out. Clean AB. I'd say with a weird execution, but I should really just say with reversed execution of HD1. Okay, I think that makes that a lot simpler. And I kind of just map out what this is. You have access to this document, plus you could download the hook map, hook and lift map. There's no elevation in HD2. Yes, there is. I don't know why I wrote that. What did I say? Maybe, okay. Now, there is an elevation. Equals the ride in HG2A. Okay, a little bit of an elevation, then it goes away and settles the rest of the way, where it just kind of steps down in energy for the most part. I'm going to take that away because there is an open hat lift. And the outro is just subtractive with punks. And so, so a boring outro is where it's literally just groove, then you take away the bass, then you just put a high pass on the drums. That would be a quote-unquote boring outro. Nothing wrong with them. I like those. But this is just kind of a subtractive, boring outro, but the only thing that's added is the punks. So here we have a vocal punk, that little sound design tone punk, vocal punks with a little bit of a clap thing for some excitement. And then also we have that the delay throw from the P8 vocal playing in the last 8 bars with an H, with a high pass groove. One last thing is over here, I said, how are we going to define the sections? And we made a note of it a million times, but HD2 B section. But again, it's just a reverse of the first drop, HD1. So the A section of HD2 is defined by the square melody, and then it interacts with the four-mont vocal. Kind of like before. Starts out without that four-monted vocal, but then it comes in. But I would see this as, high level is just the same thing. It's just the SD2, the square melody is interacting with the four-mont vocal. And then in the B section, we have, same thing, is we have the detune perk interacting with the main line, okay, the detuning perk synth. So again, just a mirror image reverse at the highest level between HD1 and HD2. Hope that was helpful. This is a great one. There's a lot of good things going on, a lot of classic things that are going on, but then at the same time, a lot of unique little elements. Now, these unique little elements, I don't think that these are the reason why the track is so successful. They're kind of minor. We have a payoff extension. We have a kind of weird setup in the main break and build with the 4-8-8-4 structure. But again, these things aren't necessary to make a track that either gets signed or even breaks into the charts, because there's tons of other tracks that don't do this whatsoever, and they're explosive and they're huge. I'm just pointing out some unique things from this track that that break a little bit away from the norms or what I would typically see. And so you can always experiment with them if you want to, but at the same time, you're always safe sticking with what works. And with that, I'll go ahead and end this video. Leave any questions down below in the comment section, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, peace.